Homelessness community telephone poll. Residents' concern about street parking, water quality, and every post-winter pothole challenges. Barrie City Council had a lot on its plate during last meetings. Currently, there are no known encampments on city-owned land.
This outcome is a direct result of the strong collaboration between the City, the County of Simcoe, and the Barrie Police Service. Through these joint efforts, the City has successfully addressed 99 sites on city-owned and private property.
But the homelessness problem continues to worsen, especially during this year's harsh winter.
Based on recent reports provided by the County of Simcoe, there are currently 643 individuals experiencing homelessness in Barrie. This is a slight increase from the 641 that was reported last month.
Disbelief that we had managed to get to the point where we've gotten on encampments was vocalized when we were in Alberta. And I think there was a lot of good communication going on that front, and probably there's going to need to be some plugging in of our folks with their folks to kind of discuss how that we've managed to achieve that.
Results from a December 2025 community telephone poll show strong public support for the city's current approach. 80% of who surveyed backed the city's encampment removal strategy, and nearly 3 in 4 supported increased investment in addressing homelessness. Staff outlined the recent steps, including a dedicated 4-officer encampment response team, updated protocols, and fencing around critical infrastructure sites. The city has taken immediate steps to address encampments, but the investment in housing is coming slowly. The city is advocating with County of Simcoe and provincial and federal governments for more funding and support.
The county is in the final preparation to open its 40-unit bridge housing facility at 113 Tiffin. This project is designed to provide supportive housing and on-site services for individuals experiencing homelessness with complex or high acuity needs.
On potholes, Councillor Jim Harris raised the issue.
Significant pothole in Ward 8 this week, or unfortunately a resident did.
Yes, now that the weather's getting warmer, we're seeing the potholes. Our team is still dealing with winter control, so it's not yet on the priority list, but we do have the pothole app, so residents can report where the potholes are. Staff will note that, and obviously we have cold patch at the operations center, and as they go out, they quickly get a lot of them done once the snow stops falling.
Barrie's drinking water earned a perfect 100% compliance rating from the province once again. Council did flag 10 minor adverse water quality incidents over the past year. Staff confirmed the problem has since been resolved and the well is operating normally. Council also praised staff on the ongoing fiber optic installation by Telmax. With record snowfall narrowing roads, the construction has been creating real headaches. Blocked roads, disrupted driveways, and cluttered job sites. Staff confirmed the city has dedicated inspector monitoring the work and has issued stop work orders in some areas. The good news, the project is more than halfway done, with full restoration expected this spring. On street parking, Greer Street sparked the biggest debate. Resident Brian Flannery spoke on behalf of over 80% of Greer Street homeowners, arguing that parking on just one side isn't enough for a high-density townhouse community where most homes only have single-car driveways.
Reducing parking to one side does not simply reduce capacity, it creates real day-to-day impacts. It eliminates space for visitors, family gatherings, limits access for caregivers, guests with mobility challenges, including my own father. It forces overflow parking onto nearby streets that are already exceeding capacity. It limits practicality for residents who call this street home. It's important to note that Greer Street is not fully built out yet. It has not reached full occupancy. Construction is ongoing. More residents are coming. Parking demand will increase, not decrease. Providing a constrained solution now guarantees future conflict. We also need to be clear about the scope. This was never a bike lane issue. That has been stated by staff, reinforced through committee discussion, and acknowledged in the Parking Ad Hoc Committee's own focus. The Parking Ad Hoc Committee took an important first step by rejecting a blanket no parking approach. What residents are asking now is to finish that work.
Staff confirmed that parking on both sides of the street doesn't work. After an extended discussion on how parking, bike lanes, snow storage, and housing design all compete for the same road space, Council amended the recommendation to apply specifically to Greer Street and approved it unanimously. Following is our coverage of the Council meetings.
We're going to go into strategic plan updates. And Mr. Schmidt, I'm going to give that over to you. You get to give all the fun stuff over to somebody else, and then you get to end up with the not so fun stuff. So why don't we start where we usually end?
All right, Mayor Nuttall, we will start with the encampment update. So a brief update to members of the committee. So the City of Barrie continues to make progress well into the emergency order in addressing encampments throughout the city. Currently, we have no known encampments on city-owned properties. That being said, our Encampment Response Team continues to monitor multiple locations in which recent activity has been reported, but again, no physical encampments are there. This outcome is a direct result of the strong collaboration between the City, the County of Simcoe, and the Barrie Police Service. Through these joint efforts, the City has successfully addressed 99 sites on City-owned and private property. Based on recent reports provided by the County of Simcoe, there are currently 643 individuals experiencing homelessness in Barrie. This is a slight increase from the 641 that was reported last month. Just further updates from the county. The county is in the final preparation to open its 40-unit bridge housing facility at 113 Tiffin. This project is designed to provide supportive housing and on-site services for individuals experiencing homelessness with complex or high acuity needs. Individuals will begin to be transitioned into these units in the coming months. The county has not yet finalized which service providers will be involved in the bridge housing program. However, it's anticipated that several different service operators will be in place to support this initiative. And just finally, over the past several weeks, shelter spaces and warming centers throughout the region, including the City of Barrie, have consistently reached full capacity and in some cases have been operating beyond capacity to ensure no one is turned away. And happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Schmidt. I'll give the thanks to you if you can pass it on to your team. And I know obviously the clerk's present here tonight, but if you can pass on to everyone involved. The disbelief that we had managed to get to the point where we've gotten on encampments was vocalized when we were in Alberta. And I think there was a lot of good communication going on that front, and probably there's going to need to be some plugging in of our folks with their folks to kind of discuss how that we've managed to achieve that. The number, the one thing stands out, and I can take this offline. I'm not looking for an answer. If you can check on the number of homeless people in the City of Barrie versus the County of Simcoe, like, are we seeing people in Barrie go into homelessness, or are we seeing people move from outside of the City of Barrie, inside of the county, into the services in Barrie? Because how we get to that number, I think, is really important as to how we track forward. Is that okay to get for us? Yeah. Any questions for Mr. Schmidt on that update just now? Okay. We're going to jump into the even funner stuff. My wife would get mad at me for using funner. Mr. Hughes, I think that's you.
Your Worship, members of committee. So on the Performing Arts Centre, the Rec and Culture staff have met with various stakeholders to develop programming options for the additional space being incorporated into the design. The design team is now reviewing how the added space integrates with the overall building and site, as well as the related cost impacts for the options being considered. A pre-consult meeting with development services and designated authorities is scheduled for next month. And staff continue to work with the environmental risk management team and related consultants, and will complete further investigations as required throughout the duration of the project. I don't have an update on the sports field. Lakehead University construction work at 24 Maple Avenue continues. Staff have begun planning work related to the installation of furniture, fitments, and equipment alongside with the Lakehead team. And the major construction of the work is expected to be completed by the end of June or so. Back of house work, construction work at 5 Ross has also begun and will continue for the remainder of the winter and early spring. Construction work within the current Georgian College space won't begin until May. We think it's important to let them finish their semester first. Infrastructure work is a occurring along McKay and Huronia, so there's no update on the rec center, but there's work happening in the neighborhood. Sea Cadet South Shore, project team is currently following up on comments received through the site plan application process. Final design revisions are being made to incorporate comments received, and the team expects to submit a formal building permit package next month. And it's not on the agenda, but I can also tell you about the Northwest Library Branch, Ward 5. As a follow-up to last month's Committee of Adjustment approval, the landlord has provided base building plans for the expanded library unit, which staff, in coordination with the library personnel, are using for interior design purposes. So that one's moving along as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Hughes. Any questions from members of either Executive Committee or members at large? Yes, Councillor Hamilton.
Just a very quick question, and I might have missed it. Speak quickly, so do I. The Recreation Center, sorry, could I just get a better understanding of where that's at in the process?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Hamilton. So we're not doing active work right now. There's work in the neighborhood, so it's all the infrastructure work, the pipes and that sort of thing out on the roadways. We've done some early kind of investigations, more kind of like noodling exercises really are the things that we're doing this year, the paper desktop sort of exercises. So it's not really active. We don't have money in our capital plan until next year to do significant work. So this is more archaeology and ESAs and that sort of that type of report that we'll be working on throughout the year.
Okay, so any actual planning exercises would not begin to 2027. Is that what I'm understanding?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So any planning work would not begin until 2027. Is that?
Correct. Detailed planning. So we have done high level planning. We've done space site layouts, that sort of thing are already there.
Yeah.
And we're doing kind of what we can do. We're not getting into detailed design really until late this year, early next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments with regards to the updates from Mr. Hughes? I'm seeing none. There's no financial updates. That's a good thing because we're sitting pretty. So if there's an update, it's probably not that it's getting better. Any other business? Seeing none. Okay, can I get a motion to go in camera on Mr. Robert Barrie? I have Councillor Nixon and Councillor Harvey. All those in favor? It's approved. So we'll go straight over there and get in 2.3.
Complete Affordability Committee. In addition, we had 5 councillors and 17 staff present. The Affordability Committee met for the purpose of the second meeting for a city-initiated official plan amendment to be consistent with the provincial planning statement 2024, file number D30-001-2025. We saw a presentation by Celeste Kitsemetry, Supervisor of Growth Management, concerning an official plan amendment application in order to make the city's official plan consistent with the provincial planning statement. Ms. Kitsemetry discussed slides concerning the following topics: why the City of Barrie needs an official plan amendment, revised employment area definition, amendment to Map 1, community structure, new land use designations, amendment to Map 2 regarding land use designation, and the next steps required. We heard verbal comments from both Angela Baldwin and Wayne Hay, and we received 7 written comments submitted. We also received 2 reports. One, the report of the Heritage Barrie Committee dated November 25th, 2025, and the report of the Heritage Barrie Committee dated January 27th, or 2026. There were no reports to committee, no items for discussion, and the meeting adjourned at 6:18 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Now we're going to move into the consent agendas. IGM-005-2026, Water Operations Branch 2025 Drinking Water Systems Report. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. And in appreciation for our responsibility, such as it is with water, I just had a couple questions through you to Ms. Dimert. First of all, congratulations on the 100% rating this year. My question was related to just clarity on the 10 adverse water quality incidents. And I wonder if you, and I recognize they were of minor in nature, and just noticing in the table that was provided that 5 of the 10 were from the one Brown Well 16. I wonder if you could speak to the plans around Brown Well 16 and the overall efforts around the significantly high quality water that we enjoy in Barrie.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to Councillor Harris. Because we have the Manager of Water Operations here tonight, I'm going to ask Diane Moreau to answer that question. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to Councillor Harris. You're correct. So we certainly aim at, with our 100% that we achieve through the ministry inspection, we certainly aim to have, our goal is to have 0 adverse water quality incidents. We have had some years with zeros, which is great, but we do have other years where we've had some occasions. So you're right. We had some issues with our Brownwood well, 16, and it was, the troubleshooting basically resolved that it was electrical issues with the site, which have since been resolved. So with our adverse water quality incidents, our operational staff tried to certainly correct at the time, but they also go through what is called our continuous improvement plan through our quality management system. And the intent of that is really to, get to root cause and try to prevent a situation from, reoccurring in the future. So it's all about looking at correcting the issue at hand at the time, but also looking for future. So the issues at Brownwood were corrected, and it's been operating fine since the last incident we had there.
Great, thank you. And I guess, I don't know, maybe it's a tradition, it's the last thing to do is to raise a glass of water and thank you.
I was always told it was bad luck to cheers with water. You're supposed to have something else in your glass, but we'll leave it there. Anybody else? Councillor Negusi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick question to staff. What improvements came from the quality management system audits? In the report, it mentioned that the quality management system audit identified 2 opportunities for improvement, but it doesn't specify what those improvements are. It's okay if you don't have, you can respond it to, via email.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to Councillor Negusi, we will follow up with you on the specifics of what those were.
All right.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to staff. As Councillor Harris said, the City of Barrie drinking water system operates safely, met all regulatory requirements, maintained high water quality, stayed within budget, and the report fulfills legislative and transparency obligation. So I just want to say thank you to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just end with, I remember being elected my first term, and we went for training, and you soon learn that the water is the only thing you're personally liable for as an elected official. And it was a little bit troublesome and worried. I thought to myself, I don't know nothing about drinking water systems. And, it was something. And then you meet our staff and the people who deal with it. And it was very easy and comforting to know that we've got some of the best. So I will, the training was great to learn, but I'll be honest, I don't worry much about it because of the people who are running it. So thank you for that. With that, I will go to inquiries. Or Ms. Cook, do I actually need a vote because it was held and commented on?
Yes, you do.
Sorry about that. On the item IGM 005-2026, all those in favor? And it passes. Now we'll go on to inquiries. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Just Quick question through you, and it may be to Ms. Demert again. Had my first experience with a significant pothole in Ward 8 this week, or unfortunately a resident did. But it just reminded me, and of course, I reached out to Mr. Fryer, and he was wonderful, and the staff were on it very quickly, so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the resident who actually reached out and said, hey, this pothole has appeared on Little Avenue, and helped get it addressed so other people weren't impacted. But with that said, Mr. Fryer has advised me pothole season's a little delayed this year because of our long and cold winter. So just wanted to, maybe for those who are watching and for all of us as a reminder, you know, as potholes emerge, such that they do at this time of year, what is the steps for people to take? Because those of us in our neighborhoods, we're the first to see them in our neighborhoods. So we're the first to be able, the first line of defense maybe to get them made aware of to the city and then get them dealt with. So if you could give us a little direction on what that could be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to Councillor Harris. Yes, now that the weather's getting warmer, we're seeing the potholes. Our team is still dealing with winter control. So it's not yet on the priority list, but we do have the pothole app. So residents can report where the potholes are. Staff will note that. And obviously we have cold patch at the operations center. And as they go out, they quickly get a lot of them done once the snow stops falling. So we can all hope that that will come soon. But yes, they can go into the pothole app and identify where they're seeing them.
Great, thank you.
Any other inquiries, members of General Committee? If you can bear with me, I just have one, and this is to Ms. Banfield. And I know I've spoke to my colleagues, and I think everybody has the same concerns. We're having work performed right now in a lot of the areas in regards to fiber optic. And I was just wondering, we've got record amounts of snow and the narrowing of roads and just the conditions and stuff makes construction challenging. And I understand they've got deadlines and budgets and stuff like that. I wonder if the city is able to request they suspend work, or if we monitor it a little bit better, because it's creating some challenges. I know that they had a machine across a road blocking roads and stuff like that, and trailers. On a normal summer day, a trailer on a 3-meter parking spot isn't a big deal, but when we've already lost 4 or 5 feet on either side with snowbanks, it's making it very challenging. And I think staff are aware, because I know council has been sending emails of other challenges that we're being faced with this provider.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. So certainly what I can say to you is that we do across the city, Telmax has deployed a number of contractors across the city. So they are working with a number of different contractors, and definitely some of them have been operating perhaps more friendly than others. But I can assure you we have a dedicated, in the City of Barrie staff, we have a dedicated inspector that in most cases is the one that we send out when we do hear those complaints. So we have constant contact with Telmax directly, as well as the people on the site. I would suggest that we have in some cases issued stop work orders in some instances across for all sorts of different reasons with some other different contractors. And make them kind of conform before we reinstate and allow them to do some work or return to work. I can share with you, and the good news is that the work across the city is more than halfway complete. So it is a challenge right now. Neighbors and our residents that have had disruption, say to their actual driveways or things like that, the repair obviously isn't going to happen in the winter months, but a full repair, whether it's a driveway apron replacement and all those, or sod or what have you, the full repair will happen in the spring. Residents are across the city, they're getting door knockers. There's contact information. Residents can always contact yourselves or Service Barrie, but they can contact Telmax directly with some of their concerns. So at this point, as I said, we have stopped work in some instances, but we really do. It's in everyone's best interest to get the work complete, and then the sooner the work gets done, the full restoration can take place.
Thank you for that. I'll now move on to, Councillor Harris? Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, and thanks for raising it. I know we had a conversation. I know in Ward 8, and Ms. Spanfield, you've been great. I mean, I really appreciate when I've had a concern brought to me by residents. You've been wonderful to send out. What I was curious about was, and I appreciate going and when there's been a complaint driven. I don't know how the resourcing is for you guys. Do we get like a daily log of where they will be, and is there potential to drive by throughout the day? Again, I don't know your resourcing, if that's even possible, but to be that proactive versus reactive option, is that available to us?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Harris, absolutely. The inspector is out frequently, and then regardless, and then certainly as complaints come in most cases, when he is aware of one, he will most likely be at the resident's house that day or the very next day. And I think probably some of you that have had those inquiries can attest to that. Like, it is a very quick, he's out there right away. So there is a lot of proactivity. And again, even from a perspective of dealing with Telmax directly, we have, even at a corporate level, made our concerns known to Telmax directly, fundamentally about being a good corporate citizen and making sure that they're leaving job sites at the end of the day safe. Certainly the snow removal and the snow activity is a concern as well. So rest assured, as I said, it's not like we're at a city level just, kind of throwing our hands up and not making them accountable. We have lots and lots of contact with them.
Thank you. That's reassuring on one side that there is proactive happening, and maybe on the other side a little bit more concerning, given there's probably more challenges with them than we even realize, because you're already doing some of the mitigation and minimizing of the challenges. And when our staff aren't there, then things still happen and we have to deal with them. So thank you then. It's good to know there's proactive measures as well. Thank you.
Councillor Corsa.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up with that, thank you, because they were through Ward 4 and there was some complications, and your team was amazing. And I just wanted to say that, yeah, you did a great job, and to let other wards know that it's a good source. You guys are doing a great job at that. Thank you.
We do have one open delegation to be received this evening. The open delegation is by Brian Flannery regarding the recommendations from the Parking Ad Hoc Advisory Committee relating to parking on Greer Street. And just for context, anybody's watching at home, I'll read the motion so you have context. If you have the agenda in front of you, the motion from the Planning Ad Hoc Committee report dated November 13th, 2025 contains one recommendation, which is that planned implementation of no parking on Greer Street, that any minor collector roadway within the Hewitts and Salem secondary plan areas having a road platform width of 12.5 meters be designed to permit parking on one side only, in accordance with the prior versions of BSD 305, and this is 25-G-123. So with that in context, I'll now call upon Brian Flannery to deliver the open delegation. In accordance with the city's procedure bylaw, Mr. Flannery, you have a maximum of 5 minutes permitted to speak, plus added time for any follow-up questions from council. From the Community Safety Committee members. The floor is yours.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Flannery. I live on Greer Street, and I'm here representing over 80% of residents of Greer Street who have stayed engaged through every stage of this process. I want to start by acknowledging the work of the Parking Ad Hoc Committee. That committee did something very important. It recognized that Greer Street requires on-street parking. At this stage, the question before you is no longer whether Greer Street needs parking. The question is whether the solution being advanced actually meets the needs of the residents. The recommendation before you allows parking on one side of a 12.5 meter wide minor collector road. For Greer Street, that is not sufficient. Greer is a high-density townhouse street where most homes have a single-car driveway. Garages are limited, routinely used for storage of essential items. 2 vehicles per household is common. On-street parking is essential here, and it being permitted thus far is how it has been able to function properly. Reducing parking to one side does not simply reduce capacity, it creates real day-to-day impacts. It eliminates space for visitors, family gatherings, limits access for caregivers, guests with mobility challenges, including my own father. It forces overflow parking onto nearby streets that are already exceeding capacity. It limits practicality for residents who call this street home. It's important to note that Greer Street is not fully built out yet. It has not reached full occupancy. Construction is ongoing. More residents are coming. Parking demand will increase, not decrease. Providing a constrained solution now guarantees future conflict. We also need to be clear about the scope. This was never a bike lane issue. That has been stated by staff, reinforced through committee discussion, and acknowledged in the Parking Ad Hoc Committee's own focus. The city has been clear that it is moving away from on-road bike lanes on collector roads in favor of separated cycling infrastructure. Retaining a bike lane on one side should not be the factor that limits a workable parking solution. What matters here is consistency and function. Greer Street is 12.5 meters wide. Across Barrie, streets with similar or narrower widths accommodate parking on both sides when surrounding density requires it. Greer Street's traffic volume is further limited by a concrete median that restricts through movement from Mapleview. This is not a shortcut. It is a residential street. Allowing parking on one side does not reflect how Greer has historically operated, how it currently operates, or how it will need to operate once full occupancy is reached. The Parking Ad Hoc Committee took an important first step by rejecting a blanket no parking approach. What residents are asking now is to finish that work. Parking on both sides of Greer Street is not only reasonable, but also consistent with city precedent and has not resulted in any vehicle, cycling, or pedestrian accidents or incidents. What we are discussing here today is not just a Greer Street issue. It's a development and engineering standards issue, where street design decisions are made without accounting for population density, housing type, driveway width, or frontage sizes. The same problem will continue to surface on street after street across the city as we continue to grow. High-density townhouse communities simply do not function the same way as low-density detached home streets, even when the road classification is the same. Greer Street is a clear example of that gap. Allowing parking on one side is not a compromise. It is an acknowledgement that existing developmental standards must reflect how streets actively function. If this isn't addressed here, it's bound to be repeated elsewhere. Greer Street gives this city an opportunity to get this right, not just for one street, but as a precedent for smarter, more responsive planning going forward. If the committee ultimately determines that parking will be permitted on only one side, it's important that that side chosen provides the greatest practical parking capacity. Thank you for your time, and I would love to answer any questions you have.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Flannery. Any members of committee have any questions? Comments? No. Non-members of committee have any questions or comments? No. I'll just ask quickly to Ms. Banfield. Thank you, Ms. Flannery. That was a very informative presentation. Ms. Banfield, can you maybe just provide some commentary on, I know this isn't your recommendation, this is the Ad Hoc's committee's recommendation, but maybe like moving forward, I don't see the specificity on if it's going to be the east or the west side of the, well, Greer kind of moves a little bit, but on the current built area. So is that up for staff to decide later? Because Ms. Flannery did raise a point, you know, if it's going to go on, if there's more surface area, there's more parking area on the east side than on the west side. And also, so do we have an idea yet where that's going to be?
Thank you, Chair Morales. We do not, but we would take that into account.
Is the intent of this motion, again, not your motion, but is the implementation of this motion to keep a bike lane of some sorts, obviously not on the side of the parking, but on the other side? That seems logical to me, but I know in the past it's kind of been, you know, we need them on both sides. So I'm just wondering how we're going to do this.
Chair Morales, as you pointed out, these are the recommendations of the ad hoc parking committee. So staff would wait for all of the recommendations to make their way through the council approval process before we look at the full implementation of them.
Okay. Other comments that Mr. Flannery said that I'll kind of address to you, I guess, in form of a question. I don't have the concerns that this will be a precedent. I can think of many situations where we have both sides, one side, no side, alternating sides. We're not a fan of doing alternating calendar, but I know in South Simcoe and Bradford, other places, it's from the 1st to the 15th to the 16th to the 31st kind of parking situations. However, moving forward, I definitely agree with the point of when you put that kind of density, which is more than single detached home. When you put townhouses and semis on a road like this, you're just going to get more cars. So you're going to see problems you don't see. In terms of parking, you don't see this on Loon Avenue, for example. You don't see this that much on Madeline North. So I guess my question is staff aware of the fact that when we have our major collector roads like this with front-facing semis in towns, that it can be a bit of an issue? And I say that because it's obviously a struggle between smart design and having rear-loading towns, and also the developers who want to maximize development and they have prior zoning, prior agreements, and prior site plans that they want to get going.
Chair Morales, I will just say that in different aspects of the municipality, staff have been asked to kind of go back and look at the parking, and staff have kind of consistently come back and said, you know, even if you wanted to allow parking, when you look at the driveway widths and the frontages, you wouldn't actually be able to fit a car in, or you wouldn't be able to fit the 1.5 meters. So yes, staff are aware that you know, there definitely are some issues with that, and you know, there's just different things that we're hoping to be able to work with the development community to improve in the future.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Banfield. Anybody else have questions, comments? Councilor Corser.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Morales, and through you to, I don't know if this would be the clerk's office or Ms. Banfield, but I do have some questions about how this would roll out for the recommendations. So my understanding is this evening, we are going to send this to, if we approve the recommendations, and it'll go through to General Committee. Is this correct?
Through Chair Morales, yes, it'll go to next week's General Committee meeting.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions regarding how this is laid out. Like for new subdivisions, and these are questions that have been brought to me, so I just wanted to make them public. So when you say new subdivisions, do you mean future approvals only, or also currently occupied but unassumed subdivisions going forward for no parking on both sides?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser. The Parking Committee reaffirmed the required parking restrictions in the recently constructed and occupied subdivisions in the city's designated greenfields. This typically applies to subdivisions built since 2017. The requirement for parking restrictions is due to the dimensions of the street and requirement to accommodate emergency vehicles. Additionally, not yet approved subdivisions are being reviewed not to recreate existing situations.
Point of order. Just to maybe make this work better, Ms. Flannery made a deputation regarding a street, and I think there's a lot bigger questions to be asked, but I think that'd be more appropriate at the parking sorry, my brain's not here. Parking ad hoc advisory committee point, is Mr. Chair, and I'm saying that I'm asking that to you, but I just think that's probably the time to go into that.
Mayor Nuttall, are you referring to just the report of the committee in general to have that discussion at 7.2?
I think that's what the councillor was looking to discuss.
7.2. Fair enough.
Yeah,
no,
I definitely jumped the gun on that.
No,
one.
no.
I
let you jump the gun on that, and it's a well-raised point. I just think if Mr. Flannery and by extension the residents have waited this long on this issue, he's here, and discussion can spur questions, right? So even if it was the wrong call, I guess I let you kind of do it a bit. Ms. Cook?
Thank you, Chair Morales. I would just suggest that maybe Councillor Corser hold her questions till we get to 7.6, because that's when the majority of the recommendations that she has the questions are on. The 7.2 is just specific to Greer Crescent.
Okay, thank you very much. And I apologize to our guest for not addressing you personally. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Anybody have any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, Ms. Flannery, thank you for your time. We're going to deal with the item momentarily. So moving on from that, we have 0 presentations from staff or standing items, committee updates, but we do have one referred item on today's agenda, and that's 6.1, the memo from Ms. Harris, the Associate Director of Communications Customer Service, dated February 4th, 2026, regarding the community telephone poll on homelessness. So the item that was referred reads that the memorandum from Ms. Harris, Associate Director of Communications and Customer Service, dated February 4th, regarding the community poll on homelessness, be referred to the Community Safety Committee for consideration. So it is on the floor to be received. Am I correct, Ms. Cook?
Yes, but the members of council can ask questions, because I think the deputy mayor was the one that referred it, and I think he had some questions concerning the content of the memo to staff.
Okay, so it's on the floor as printed. Any members of committee have questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair Morales, and I'll give an introduction of kind of where my head is at, and then I'll ask questions to staff if that's okay with you. The results from the community telephone poll conducted in December 2025 were shared with council in a memo, and the poll shared residents' feedback on the homelessness encampment and community safety and related investments made. Overall, the survey showed public support for the city ongoing work to address homelessness, including removing encampments from shelters where supports are offered, and investment in policing and crime reduction. At the same time, residents expressed a clear expression that the County of Simcoe should play a greater role in addressing the homelessness and addiction and mental health. I was encouraged to see the overwhelming support from the city in regards to the issues of the encampments. So 80% say they support the city's approach to removing encampments, and nearly 3 out of 4 residents supported the city's increased investment to address homelessness and encampments in our community. So my question is to through you, Chair, to Ms. Reed. What are we going to do with the results from this community poll?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. Thank you for the question. The poll is posted on our website, on our dedicated page on the homeless issue. And we have had several media cover the poll already, which has been, I think, helpful for the city. And we have intention to continue to share the results on social media with This Week in Barrie Rogers. But we're also intending to use that information to continue our advocacy efforts as we're continuing our conversations with the County of Simcoe on the Municipal Services Agreement, but also with the provincial government and the federal government for support and funding for the homeless issue.
Thank you for that. And I hope we're successful, because I think we're on the right path, and all the work your team's doing and government relations and stuff. I think we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor of the connections through the mayor and yourself. So my second question, Chair, through you to Mr. Schmidt. Considering 80% of the Barrie residents supported this city's current approach to removing encampments, what recent changes has the city made to minimize the impact on large encampments returning to our parks going forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor. So the Deputy Mayor, the city's undertaken several initiatives, and I can comment on a few of them so far. Essentially, the first one is we've established a dedicated encampment response team, which includes or is comprised of 4 municipal enforcement officers. And their sole responsibility is really to monitor and to address encampments or encampment activity on city-owned properties in tandem or in collaboration with our partners at the County of Simcoe and Barrie Police. Secondly, we have a dedicated program manager of social services oversight. And this dedicated resource has assisted in strengthening our relationships and partnerships with our community partners, as well as played an active role in assisting our encampment response team. I would also say that, again, the collaboration with our partners at the county and Barrie Police has been enhanced and are strengthened since the emergency declaration has come into effect. And I also, I guess, add that the city has also taken the opportunity to update our encampment protocols, amend city bylaws, as well as some of our procedures. And in addition, you're starting to see some installation of infrastructure around some of our city-owned open spaces. So those are some of the initiatives that are ongoing, and we continue to look at other ways to, again, try to minimize.
Perfect. Thanks for your response, and thanks for all the work. And I know Natasha and Ms. Cook's department, and it's a collaborative effort, so I appreciate it. And it's a tough file, but I think the compassionate approach that we've taken from the beginning is showing some true results, so thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Corser.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Morales, to Mr. Schmidt. What do you mean by infrastructure around public spaces?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Corser, fencing. So essentially, we're in the process of installing fencing around some of these open spaces that we previously experienced some of these large encampments.
Can you disclose what locations those would be?
Again, through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser, the installation of fencing is around the Victoria Street encampment. And I believe once the weather permits, we'll also be continuing to install further fencing around other areas in that specific encampment area.
So, of course, this we're not talking about public parks. We are talking about city-owned open spaces.
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser, that's correct. Not public parks, open spaces.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're not fencing the parks. Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, thanks. Just to confirm, Mr. Schmidt, these aren't just any open spaces. As I understand it, they're critical infrastructure, wellhead, and ponds and streams that are eventually going down beside our beach. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Mr. Mayor, you're correct.
So no fences around the waterfront?
Correct.
Beautiful.
I like the strategy of meeting out there claims with humor, not with silence. I like that approach. Thank you, everybody. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will take a vote to accept the report as printed. I'm not going to read it again. All those in favor, please indicate. Okay, that passes unanimously. So reports of the advisory committees, there are 6 committee reports to be received. Usually I bundle them. I am going to bundle some. Why don't we bundle 7.1, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, because those don't have recommendations coming from them. If any member of committee has an issue with that, we'll split them up, but those don't have any, and then we'll go through the ones that do. Okay, seeing no issue. 7.1, 7.3. Ms. Cook, do I have to read them out loud or no? Okay. As printed, 7.1, 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5. All those in favor of receiving them, please indicate. So received. So now 7.2, report of the Parking Ad Hoc Committee dated November 13th, 2025. That the report of the Parking Ad Hoc Committee dated November 13th, 2025 be received. The Parking Ad Hoc Committee report dated November 13th, 2025 contains one recommendation for the committee to consider, which is planned implementation of no parking on Greer Street, read as the following: that any minor collector roadway within the Hewitts and Salem secondary plan areas having a road platform width of 12.5 meters be designed to permit parking on one side only, in accordance with the prior versions of BSD 303, 25-G-123. So that recommendation is, Ms. Cook, I believe it doesn't automatically go on the floor. It just a member would have to put it on the floor.
A member of the committee would have to put it on the floor for consideration.
So that's the motion as read. Does anybody want to put it on the floor? We can vote it down. We can vote in favor of it. We can do whatever, but just the procedure, it's been a bit, we need to put it on the floor. Or we can not. It's up to members of the committee.
So moved, Chair.
So moved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, on the floor as read. Any questions or comments from members of the committee first? Perfect. Councillor Courser? Well, on the Mayor's advice, actually, no, because I bundled 7.2 away. So yeah, you can talk about this one specifically. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Cook.
We were going to direct Councillor Courser questions to the items under 7.6 because they more match the content under 7.6 as opposed to 7.2.
Understood. Okay. So do you have any questions about this one specifically? On a Greer level?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Sorry, did you bundle the other one together? That we, okay.
So with Ms. Cook's clarification, if you have more citywide policy macro questions, you can ask them at 7.6,
Okay.
which I didn't bundle
Perfect.
away.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Anybody else? Mayor Nettle.
Yeah, if I can just ask a question, and Deputy Mayor, I meant to follow up with you beforehand, but I didn't, so apologize. When we're looking at the parking on one side of the street, is that widening the size of the street, or is it just allowing the parking to exist on one side?
You're being asked?
Yeah. Through you, Chair. So this street here is existing road, so there would be no widening.
But it says anywhere in the Hewitts and Salem secondary plan areas.
Right, so it would not extend, it would not expand the road. It would be whatever the width of the design already, it would just allow for one side is the recommendation from the ad hoc committee. It's not a designated parking lane on top of the structure of the road already.
And follow up, maybe to staff, because you can answer if you know it, answer it, but would this then decrease the width of the road?
Through Chair Morales to Mayor Nuttall, so it would decrease the travel lanes, like the width of the road, the width of the asphalt would stay the same. How that asphalt is used would change. So there would be a car parked on one side, so that's going to, plus or minus take 2.6 meters, give or take. So you'd have a 10-meter driveway or like asphalt for cars to go back and forth.
So currently it's 12.5 meters on these collectors, and after it'll be 12.5 meters on these collectors.
Through you, Chair. No. So the existing road on this would be 12.5, and normally a parking stall is between 2.6 and about 3.3, give or take. So that would be minus the 12.5. So the actual travel lanes would be between 10.3 and 9.8. So it is reducing the travel area of the road, definitely.
Okay, beautiful. I'm going to then speak in favor of this. Two reasons. One thing we hear from the development community about getting to lower cost housing is how much of the land is taken up by the needed city services. And so if we were going to expand, that would then fly in the face of trying to get cheaper housing. So thank you for that. And the second is smaller places, smaller spaces for cars to travel reduces traffic, and these are residential areas. So I don't want another Hearst Drive, Madeline Drive. I mean, like we can name 20 of them, Livingston condos. Like just go around the city and everyone can pipe up in their ward what they don't like. I really, really do think that this is good planning to have some parking dedicated, but also to have a lane structure that doesn't encourage speeding, but rather encourages using the right speeds in residential neighborhoods.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Through you, Chair, and maybe to the Mayor, and I think this might have been something like a little bit of an oversight of the ad hoc committee, and I was on it, so I'm guilty of it, but I think this is where we really have to look in the future of, you know, hearing the deputation of the need for the parking, not as a luxury, but more of a necessity, you know, for the affordable housing, the multi-generational and stuff. But if you took a 12.5 and let's say you use 3 meters and you took that from both and made the road a one-way, then your traveling area is large enough for emergency vehicles, but by accommodating, you know, it depends on the whole subdivision, because obviously you have to have a way to get into the one-way. But I think that's something we should be looking at and stuff, and I know you've been talking about that for years.
It's not a bad point. Thank you to both of you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this? Councillor Hamilton. Oh, you're pointing. No, you had.
No, I'm just not on committee, and are we still members of the committee?
I called on you. I will go back to Councillor Corser.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, then I guess flipped a quarter there. Okay, so I think I'm on surface, I am supportive of this. It's just how the rollout would be done that I have concerns about, because of several questions that I had, and I said to staff earlier about how this would be rolled out. Who would be taking responsibility for the implementation of the signs, and who would be footing the bill before the roads were actually assumed by the city, and the equity of using which, if we're using like something like a hotspot app, how are we going to be making sure that maybe people who do not use smartphones are able to access parking as well? I think there is a lot of thought that needs to go into this before we make approve a recommendation.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Corser. That is 7.6.
Oh, geez.
That's okay. I've done it all the time.
Okay. So what are we discussing right now then?
Just Greer Street.
All right.
And this.
Just Ward 9.
Yeah. Just Ward 9.
Just Ward 9.
All right.
Well, Greer Street, sorry, it curves. So do you have any comments about Greer Street?
No, I do not.
Okay, no worries. Hey, we're so passionate on it. I can't call her out. How many times have I been doing that for 11 years? So I say it out of experience. Okay, thank you, Councillor Corser. Councillor Hamilton, go ahead. Earlier when I said I called on you, but I'll go to her. I meant you go first, but anyways. I worded it wrong. It's one of those days.
We'll get this right at some point tonight. Thank you, and through your chair. I will say this title is very confusing because it's saying planned implementation of no parking on Greer Street, but the description of the recommendation itself is relevant to all of Hewitt's and Salem secondary plan areas. So the implications is far beyond Greer Street. So I'm not sure why that was under that heading, but in any case, Hewitt and Salem secondary plan is within Ward 10, so I do feel the need to speak to this. And this does make me nervous, I will say, and maybe it's just because I'm not familiar with the size of the roads, but the existing collector lanes in already developed areas, are they all 12.5? Do we ever deter from that? And maybe I'll direct these questions to Ms. Banfield.
Ms. Banfield.
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Hamilton. So the parking restrictions in the secondary plan area were established through a series of staff reports that began back in 2023. And it was basically at that point, the staff report recommendation was that on all laneways, and I know you're getting to a width, but
Yeah.
I'm going to answer. So all laneways had no parking permitted. Local streets had parking on one side, and collector streets like Greer had no parking prohibited. And so in terms of like the width of the asphalt, which is what this is talking about, in most cases, the asphalt width is either 12.5 meters to 13 meters. So laneways are obviously smaller and major collectors are bigger, but that's the range based on the city standard for this type of road.
Okay. And is it feasible, given the amount of room you would need for parking, is it feasible to have parking on both sides and still allow two-way traffic and emergency vehicles, or is it not feasibly possible given whatever restrictions and minimum requirements are needed for laneways?
Through Chair Morales to you, Councillor Hamilton, just basically doing math, it wouldn't be necessarily possible to have, because basically if it's 12.5 meters of asphalt and you're going to take plus or minus 2.5 meters on either side, you're not going to have enough. Typically we want 6 meters for two-way traffic. So you wouldn't, just from a math perspective, they wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be wide enough.
Okay, so based on that, my understanding for Greer Street and the request to have parking on two sides, and that could extend to any collector roadway in Hewitts or Salem, it is functionally not feasible to allow cars to be parked on both sides and meet the minimum requirements needed for two traffic lanes.
Through Chair Morales to Councillor Hamilton, I think that's the probably easiest answer. Is I don't think from a math perspective it would be possible to do everything that you're talking about in the 12.5 meters of asphalt.
Okay. I just wonder that because I'm trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve here, because I hear all the time of parking issues and there's not enough parking in these developments that are built so tiny and there's just no room to park, right? They have tiny garages. You can't park in the garage because you got your recycling and your garbage and your snowblower and your shovels. Like, parking is a nightmare. And so they constantly need to park in collector roads. And so I agree with the one side. Absolutely. I think we absolutely need that. But I guess I really did wonder about the two and why we're preventing that. And maybe I'll just leave it there until we get to the next part, because I know that there's a number of other motions as part of this, as Councillor Cursor got to. I'm just trying to identify and you even said yourself, having parking on these collector roads helps to reduce speed, right? Which is a positive thing. So is the issue we need to, I don't know, make the collector road 13 meters so that we can actually have parking on both sides and have passing traffic? Or is that not appropriate? Is that too wide?
I'll take that as a comment.
Well, actually, it would be a question. Oh, is that a better way to come at it than collector roads have to have a minimum of whatever it is, 13.5 meters, so that we can park on both sides of the road? Or is that taking away from development space? What creates that 12.5? Is that just a standard?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Hamilton, I mean, certainly cities, it's an established city standard that is determined based on the space to complete everything that you need in a road right of way. So when we talk about a city standard, like in this case, we're talking literally just about a 12.5 meters of asphalt, but the actual road allowance is wider. And certainly Mayor Nuttall said something earlier in the context of streets aren't cheap, I guess, is a good way of putting it, in terms of every additional bit of asphalt or even every additional piece of land. The bigger the street is, there are impacts to the cost of the development.
And so I guess that, I get that. I guess my final comment is, I mean, you see in older neighborhoods, perhaps, that have slightly bigger lots, right, that do have wider collector streets, and you allow parking on both sides, and they're functional. I get in newer developments, we're trying to fit as many houses in as possible to, meet our targets and our growth projections and all of that. But I feel like we're hitting this tipping point where we're building things that just aren't functional for the residents that are living there. So great that we're going to have parking on one side. I don't know if that's going to solve the problem that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So at what point are we, making developers happy because they're building as much as they want, but we're making residents miserable living here? So I'll stop there.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Any others? I'll make some quick ones, because this is in Ward 9 and this is an issue that I have a little bit of, have taken an interest over the years. I just want to clarify something Ms. Banfield said, because you raised some good points. She is correct that it is not functional to have 4 lanes. It's 4 lanes, 2 lanes of parking, 2 lanes of travel. It's not advisable and functional. It is possible. And I'm not trying to be, contradict the staff, but I just want to take you through the math, because I know the math intimately. A parking stall is 2.6 meters. There have been exceptions where we've gone up to 2.7 in the city of Barrie, 311 Georgian Drive, and a couple of others. It's 2.6. That's a parking spot, meters. That includes the mirrors. There are exceptions to the rule. A lifted diesel F350, right? And the pop-up mirrors, whatever. But 99% of the vehicles will fit, and you can swing the doors open to get out of the spot in 2.6 meters. Now, 2.6 times 2.6, you've got 5.2. And then travel lanes, you don't want to drive on 2.6. You need a little bit more. So usually you see 3. I think the lowest usually you see is 3. Sometimes I think on Bay, on arterials, we see 4.5, 4. So if we go off that, let me quickly just do the math here. So we have 5.2 plus 4.5 plus 4.5. We're at 14.2. So if it was 12.5 divided by the 2.6, we get to 4.8 units. So we do get to, in theory, get 4 lanes, but it is, like I said, I'm not contradicting myself, it's very advisable to do a travel lane of 2.6 meters. Is it possible? Yes. However, I don't blame staff for saying it's not functional. We are not designing to the standard of, in theory, especially Greer can park along every single portion of the shoulder, even blocking driveways, and then imagine saying, okay, and then at that same time, you need 2 cars to go by each other. How many times do 2 cars go by each other when parked? What do? If it's tight, if the snow kind of made the cars not park perfectly, you wait, you let them go, then you go. This is in Bayfield, it's not gonna have constant traffic. However, it's the principle of the matter. So just wanna clarify, it is possible, but probably not advisable. In existing streets, you probably have examples of 12.5 and people make it work. But again, Penetang Street up here, you see cars parked sometimes on both sides. Something I do want to say, though, is this is something we're going to have to reckon with. And again, not to go too much into the macro, but again, a good point. The motion was written with the Greer title and then the citywide policy. This is going to be a balance of priorities and what we want. And I'll take everybody through it. Right now, if this motion passes here, it's going to have to go to general and then council. But eventually, if it makes it down to food chain and it gets implemented, essentially what this says is no on-road or road grade painted on bike lanes. So where are they going to go? We haven't even talked about those. So they're gone. So right there, our bike lanes are gone. Okay? So no painted, notice how I said at grade. So it's going to say no to that. It's going to more or less, what was the word? Dedicate. The Mayor Nettle said dedicate on-street parking, at least on one side. But also back in 2023, we approved a policy that said all arterials and collectors that are newly built or reconstructed have grade separated bike lanes, cycle tracks. So we want bike lanes, we want parking, but no on-street bike lanes because they're gone. It's not compatible. But also, and thank you, Councilor Harvey, for appearing here because now I get to make this point because you're here. But we also want to advocate for having enough of a boulevard for snow storage. Something's got to give, and I know what it is. It's no front-loading houses on collectors. So basically, you have to access the driveway from the back. Think how many times you've been in the GTA where you just design it off the back. Some of them maintain a backyard, some of them don't, some of them go to communal. It works. There are examples where it does look nice, and it is possible, but that means no driveways, so we become another loon, another country lane, et cetera, et cetera. So, and why that has to give is this, because where are you going to get the meters to possibly do cycle tracks, keep a good boulevard for the snow, do the parking, and do the drivability? You're going to get it from that front yard setback. You know how historically that front yard setback is 7 meters, sometimes 5 meters? Well, in the new zoning bylaw, it's being recommended to be around 3. That plus the right of way. So the city also maintains 1 to 2 meters for right of way. So think in your head, it's going to be 5 instead of 12 plus 2, instead of 7 plus 2, instead of 9. It's going to be 5 instead of 9. So that means that truck, that car isn't going to fit there. Well, it's not meant to fit there because it's now rear loading design. This does not affect local roads. This does not affect crescents and smaller local neighborhoods, that are likely going to be single attached, and buyers expect that kind of traditional home. This is for those people living on those streets that we don't want another Cundles, another Ann Street, etc. So this is a very specific thing. Don't think we're taking away your right to park in front of your car from the front. That is what has to give. However, what I've heard from the development industry is they don't want to, because they've always designed it a certain way in Barrie, and they have zoning approvals, and they have, I believe, site plans. They haven't built on there for a while, and I don't blame them for it. There's been many factors. that they're ready to go, and they would have to redo all those on streets that are yet to be built in your ward and mine, Councillor Hamilton. And that's the opportunity. So are we a city that's open for business and sticks to their word? Or do we learn the lesson from Mr. Flannery and the dozens, if not over 100 residents? Because you guys were essentially a test. Didn't work. I'm sorry. But do we get it right and renege, if not legally, at least on our word, to the planning community that may or may not go after us on this or take issue? You know what I mean by go after us. So this is how we reckon with this. We can probably have it all. At least one side of proper driving lanes while reducing the width just enough. We're talking 30 centimeters on each side to reduce speeds. Having one side of on-street parking, great separated cycle tracks to keep people safe and get them out of the way for people who are driving. It's a win-win. Plus the boulevard for the snow. But we cannot do front-loading units on collectors in Ontario. We are not going after on local roads. And why I'm nerding out so much on this is I know the subject well, but I also want to communicate it because, you know, staff is too polite to say it, so I won't. That laundry list of asks that I said is going to put staff in an impossible situation if the development community doesn't say, fine, we'll do rear loading. So that is a conversation that, listen, if this gets approved, here's another thing. I'll end this with a question to Ms. Banfield, just because I want to be direct with Mr. Flannery and anybody watching this. My gut feeling is this: if this passes, eventually at council, there's a chance it theoretically could be undone very quickly then, because if we're taking a comprehensive look at everything, this is an ask. Yet we also passed something in 2023 that said grade separated bike lanes, which might be undone. And we have also got people, councillors, and rightly so, advocating for good boulevards for no storage. All these things, if the front-loading units doesn't give, one is going to bump the other one. So there could be a scenario where this gets approved now gets approved in 3 weeks, becomes quote-unquote law, and then by June, it's undone. So Ms. Banfield, is it fair to say that if this passes, eventually at council, since we're taking a comprehensive look at how all of these interact, because you need to eventually there needs to be some sort of document that comes to council that goes either on-street parking on one side, plus the category, the widths on collectors, I think it was Schedule 4 on that document that outlined them, is maintained, plus boulevard guarantees, plus cycle tracks are preserved. You're going to have to, eventually staff will have to come with a report how all of those interact with each other in an ecosystem. Is that fair to say? Or would you like to provide some commentary if I said anything off?
Chair Morales, I'm not necessarily sure if there's a question in there, but in terms of like just what this implementation would look like, if this gets through, council is aware that no parking restrictions are set up by bylaw through the city of Barrie. So staff would take these recommendations and would look at the streets impacted by these recommendations and would be bringing back a staff report to specifically say no parking is allowed here or one side is allowed here. So that would all kind of come back to council, and you'd be able to look at it on effectively a street by street basis. But your point about the single detached or the towns or any sort of ground related housing fronting onto these properties, as I said earlier, the narrower the lots, whether they're for singles, towns, or semis, the narrower their lots, and you still need to have a driveway. Even if council, my concern is even if council suggests we do it on both sides of the street, you still physically can't park a car there. So you could say that you can do it on both sides of the street, but you physically can't park a car there without blocking in someone else's driveway. It's a little bit different if there's a park or a school or what have you, but generally speaking, if you look at Greer, it's all homes. So I just wanted to make council aware. But in terms of implementation, council would see a staff report back with each street listed, and we would do it through the bylaw like we always do.
So follow up to that, Ms. Banfield. So if we get that list back, there's going to be essentially accepting this motion means no bike lanes on both sides. Like the words are not explicitly said, but if we allow parking on one side of Greer, one of those painted on bike lanes is gone, removed. Or at least I know some policies, right? That's what I'm trying to get at, is that this decision has a ripple effect on other policies.
Chair Morales, yes, but we, again, without kind of looking, we'd have to look at it at a street by street basis, but essentially you're correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's not a bad thing. It is what it is. But I just want people to be aware that like all of these things are pulling at each other unless the development community, now they can't rebuild the homes on Greer, but unless the development community goes towards rear loading. So to your point that you said earlier that even if we allow it on both sides, they might still be blocking a driveway. But that wouldn't be the case with rear loading because there'd be no driveways on the road. Would that be correct?
Chair Morales, you're correct.
Okay. So that is tough because we are also a city that honors its word and doesn't rip up site plans when units are ready to come on the grid. And we care about housing, not just to hit our targets because people got to live somewhere. So these are very tough conversations. I do not look forward to them, but they're important and we need to have them. I'm getting the look, so I think we need to go a little bit. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Chair Morales. I was going to suggest that the recommendation, maybe a member may want to put an amendment forward just to make that one specific to Greer as opposed to the Hewitt secondary. Because if you move on to 7.6, there is another recommendation that also addresses the 12.5 meters. So you could also put an amendment forward if council's not comfortable, or sorry, members of Community Safety Committee aren't comfortable with just automatically implementing this, is maybe just putting that staff report back on any impacts on current policy and things like that. And then as Ms. Banfield says, they would report back anyway, so that you just put that direction in that recommendation. And then that way you're not doing a blanket approval. Staff would report back on any implications and adherence to current policy or other council recommendations.
Okay. Could I have a committee member move the amendment to clean up the wording, switch Hewitt's and Salem's secondary plan areas to just Greer Street? Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, second by Mayor Nuttall. Okay, so now that that's been, sorry, I have to vote on the amendment. Quick vote. Could I get a vote? All those in favor, please indicate. Okay, that is now as amended. So the recommendation as amended. So now we're just talking Greer Street. Okay, so now we're just talking Greer Street. So again, this doesn't have the potential to be so much changed. However, I do want other members of council, again, precedent is not a thing with these things because every street has its challenges, so I'm not concerned about that. But just be aware that, especially for the cycling advocates, whether you like cycling or you just want them to be, drive on their own lane and kind of be out of the way, this motion, while not having the explicit words you heard in Ms. Banfield, essentially is removing a bike lane, which is, it is what it is. Do we like it? Do we not? I just want that to be the case and not like we think that that might be the case. Because there's going to be opportunity costs for collectors. This doesn't affect other roads if the development community doesn't change to rear loading, which is not an easy conversation to have. Okay, so just for Greer right now, we'll go to the more macro one. Anyone have any other questions or comments? No? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Oh, you're voting. I was just thanking Mr. Flannery. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. Okay, so that's approved unanimously. So we'll move on to 7.6. 7.6. Report of the Parking Ad Hoc Advisory Committee dated February 5th. The report of the Parking Ad Hoc Advisory Committee dated February 5th is received. The Parking Ad Hoc Committee report dated February 5th contains 6 recommendations for the committee to consider. So a year-round overnight parking prohibition with a single overnight permit program. We also have the early parking enforcement occupancy prior to assumption of the subdivision, residential parking restrictions in new subdivisions, adequate interior garage space for vehicle parking, advise potential, every time I take a pause, it's another one, advise potential buyers of on-street parking restrictions, update the community information map for new subdivision parking restrictions, and that is it. Ms. Cook, does everybody on committee have a copy of this? Like in front of them? Everyone on committee? Like everyone ideally, but everyone has a copy? Okay. So you're able to read it. Hopefully you've read it. You can refer to it. Ms. Cook, would it be appropriate, am I able to, and would it be, I guess I'll ask you that question, if we could do some of these on consent, and that way we can preserve time to maybe do the one or two people might want to chat about?
Yes, you can ask members of committee if they would, if they're interested in approving any of them on consent, and then just discuss the ones that have specific question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cook. I'm going to go down the list. So I'm going to say them if you would like to chat, even if you just want to chat, even if you like it and it's great and you want to just comment, being cognizant of time, just say hold, kind of like the mayor does at general committee. And then if you don't really take an issue, there might, again, my personal opinion, there might be a couple here that they're nice, and but we can let them go. Let them go. Okay. Mayor Nettle, before I start, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to confirm, because I'm going through 7.6.1. When you go through the whereases, whereas the Traffic and Parking Strategy Department are in the process of retaining a consultant to undertake updates to the municipal parking strategy, and then jump ahead to, it says in concert somewhere. So this program can be reviewed in concert with the other parking initiatives and permit systems. So to me, and I just want to confirm from the clerk, to me, all of these things are going to go through a review from companies that specialize in parking strategies. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Mayor Nuttall. Yes, the intention is all this would go to the consultant as part of the review. Mr. Forsyth's team is leading the review, and once the review is done, that will come back to council, but it'll be like early 2027 that it'll come back to council.
Okay, so I'm going to put forward a strategy for the strategy.
Can I guess it? We just let it go through and eventually we can do it later.
Yeah, but I want to, yeah.
Sorry,
but
killed your thunder.
Can I sound smart for like 1 second? Come on, you just sounded smart for like 10 minutes. I actually turned to Councillor Hamilton and said I like the thought process behind like bringing all the things in to the conversation so that we're all on the same page. My concern would be we're debating the outcome before it goes to those who know this best. And I think we should send it to the professionals to come back and say, this is why you would do this. These are the circumstances you would do this, or don't do this. This is a bad idea. Because everybody's thinking about a street, but not necessarily the same street, and every street's different, to Ms. Banfield's point. So I think that, like, for me, I want as wide a berth as possible for the consultants to look at to then come back to us. I would like an amendment to look at all of the things. So the bike lanes, the parking, the snow, they used to be called boulevards and other snow storage areas. All of these things to be contemplated when it comes back from the consultant. If that requires an amendment, it's moved. I don't know the languages.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And to speak about me reading your mind, Mayor Nuttall, that just means that you're such a good mentor. See, I jumped at the answer before you could even say it. But no, that makes sense, the way they interact with each other. Might I recommend this from your comments? I propose that we add this language, and I'm spitballing here. Hopefully Ms. Cook will write it down and somebody just puts up their hands, because the chair technically can't move it. That the following recommendations, so all those recommendations now become subsects of one. We can do that. That the following recommendations be approved and taken into account by the parking consultant for review, and that the parking consultant also consider, study, and include as part of their recommendations how all of these recommendations and snow storage, on-street parking, grade-separated cycle track, it's getting a little long, infrastructure, all interact with each other. I would have loved to have had this ahead of time, but fair enough. But Ms. James Reed?
Thank you, Chair Morales. If I can just add that it gets even more complicated because of the way that our parking services are organized within the city. So part of the work that the mayor was just speaking to and that you were adding as your amendment would be more development services team. The work of the parking strategy that the transit and parking department to do, that would be out of scope of what we would be doing within that part of the study. So I think you could do the study with the parking strategy, and then we could share that study with development services, and then Michelle and her team could report back to council as to what the impact would be as it relates to your snow removal, your bike lanes, and those kind of things. But that's not something a parking strategy work would do.
Ms. Cook?
Thanks, Chair Morales. Building on what Ms. James Reed said, so if you're talking about recommendations onward from early parking enforcement, residential parking adequate, what we could do is we could refer those to staff and development services to report back on once the strategy is complete, and discuss any impacts that or synergies or whatever that the study may have. And we can include the bike lanes, the snow storage, the separated, which I'll get the wording for you later, the collection and all that kind of stuff. And then that way we can do part A, and then staff can report back on part B, because whatever they decide about overnight parking and everything like that, that's definitely going to impact the 12.5 meters and some of the other things that are in there.
Mayor Nuttall?
Yeah, I would just ask that we don't, there's no point in coming back to council, getting into the agenda system, going through the process, then referring it off to staff. Do that on this so that we can get a fulsome set of recommendations. I don't know if that's an amendment or just an ask. But
I'm going to jump in there. Ms. James Reed, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, because I might have heard it wrong. You're saying that the consultant for the municipal parking strategy does their work. A lot of it is transit related as well. They do their work, and once they do their work, then those recommendations can be reviewed by staff, and then how it interacts with the snow storage, grade separated bike lane bylaw, and parking guarantee. What was the word that we used earlier? Dedicated on-street parking accommodation. How all those things can coexist. Was that what you said? I just want to confirm before I make a comment.
Yeah, through you, Chair Morales. That was what I was saying. So the parking strategy team that it works through Brent's team is for paid parking, and it's primarily focused on downtown and waterfront parking. That's the work of the parking strategy that we had put in as a budget item. When the parking ad hoc committee started talking about this, we thought there could be an opportunity that we could do a part of that study that could provide this information for council. But we don't, as a parking and transit team for paid parking, we don't typically get involved in residential parking. That's something that Ms. Banfield's team leads and provides advice to council on. So that's where it kind of got a little bit sloppy, but I think the proposal that's been discussed would work unless Ms. Banfield has any other thoughts.
Okay, so that is the most polite. Please don't hold up the other stuff for the residential, which is fair, right? We're delineating the responsibilities. I just don't want it to be a situation where they do this, because some of these things to me, like having a parking having a overnight parking single-use system for citywide, because it does go residential now, outside of the existing scope, that bleeds into residential. Tonight is a night of dichotomy, so it does have the ability to bleed into residential, and if the consultant doesn't take into account the scope of on-street parking and how that will eat up for existing neighborhoods, that will mean the removal of bike lanes. It is what it is, and if we vote on it on a per street basis, whatever. How that affects the new built lands if the developers don't switch to backload design. And so if they don't take that into consideration, again, I don't want to hold up some of your other strategy, but it seems that these are interlinked.
Through you, Chair Morales, they are interlinked, especially because the proposal that the ad hoc committee was saying was doing like a hotspot or a automated system, which is led by our team, and that's primarily used for waterfront and downtown. So the recommendations that we will be coming back with the consultant's input as to whether or not we could do that on a citywide basis, what the cost would be, how would enforcement look, all these things we don't know. These are not staff recommendations. This is coming from the committee, so we need time to look at that with the help of the consultant and to work with Michelle's team to come back to council with something.
But will they also review some of the residential implications to some of the, if for a citywide permit program for residential parking restrictions, because that's connected to a citywide permit program?
Yes, if this passes through to council.
Okay, so I think the points you raised, Mayor, it'll be taken into consideration. Ms. Cook, would you like to, do you have wording? I'll get to you, Councillor Corson, in a second. Do you have wording either on what I said or a better version of that on this?
Okay, I'm going to try my best, and then you guys will trust me with the wording that comes forward to General Committee next week. So the first recommendation will go forward as written, and then what we'll do is we will refer the remainder of the recommendations to the Development Services Team or applicable department. The other parking strategy is completed. And then we're also going to include review of bike lanes, other on-street parking, which is in the motion, snow storage, and then the separated, which I didn't note down. We separated.
Grade separated cycle tracks?
Yes.
Okay, and then on-street painted bike lanes. Just that it's an important distinction. Okay, perfect.
And then so that would get referred to staff to report back once. Like I think we probably all report back together or something like that once the other review is completed, and that would be sometime early Q.
So with that language on the floor as read by Ms. Cook, does anyone not understand the spirit or the words? It was, we're being a little bit more liberal today. Does anyone not understand the spirit of what we're voting on? Okay, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair Morales. And maybe just a little bit of backstory, a little bit from the ad hoc committee. So the recommendations, other than the overnight parking, were to go to staff for a report back for implementation. The only one was the overnight parking to go to the consultant to look at the feasibility, how to implement it, how it's done. So I just don't want to take the work of the ad hoc committee and just kind of throw it out. And we're not really doing that. It's just, but I think if we stay on that, so referring the overnight parking to the consultant, and then all the other recommendations, which are in-house through Michelle's team with, the garage space and the impact of those can be presented to council in a report. So I just wanted to give some clarification that it wasn't all to go to Brent's team.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we'll vote. I'll table them separately, just so we can have the discussion separately. Note a good point, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Go ahead, Councillor Corser. You've been waiting patiently.
Thank you. I finally get to speak to 7.6 because I was attempting to all night incorrectly. So my confusion with this was, as I guess Deputy Mayor just cleared up for me, is I read it as this was supposed to be approving a recommendation for no overnight parking. I did not read this as it going back to be reported on. So if we're discussing now, because I had a gazillion questions to ask because it's such an all-encompassing thing that we really need to break down and we really need to take a look at, as opposed to making a overall arching decision without detail. So if we're discussing now, the decision to be made is to bring this back to, especially when earlier on Ms. Banfield mentioned that it would be a street by street kind of look at after that. So there's just so much confusion here. How rollout, how it's implemented, how it's going to affect people and their standard of living and all the things. There's so much to decide it here on a couple of paragraphs that I would be highly supportive of taking this back and tearing it apart and getting a really good look at the details of this.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. To my understanding, since you didn't ask the staff directly, I'll relay it. Ms. Banfield, would it be fair to say that the motion, the first one, we're going to start separating them. Thank you, Ms. Cook. The first one, the year-round, let's call it 7.6.1, speaks to, hey, let's get that information. Let's get information to see how this very new, very different program would look like. Because I guess what I'm hearing from you, Councilor Corser, is it's a million questions to be had. So tear apart the idea But my comment to you, and I just want to confirm it with staff, because I don't want to like tell you something, I'm not staff, is we don't know what we don't know yet. So this motion is essentially, let's find out. Is that a correct interpretation, Ms. Banfield?
Yes, Chair Morales.
Perfect. Does that satisfy Councillor Corser?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor, I'm going to break the rule of, Councillor Reitma, go ahead.
And I was part of the ad hoc committee as well. So the first recommendation, I think, says that we want to send it off to the consultant. I think that makes perfect sense because it is a big move and it's something that a consultant can really deal with. The other recommendations, I think we should deal with because they're something that our staff can deal with without going to a consultant. So that's my suggestion, is that we pick them off one at a time and discuss them. But the very first one is to send the first one off to a consultant.
Fair enough. We can deal with them, but if we get information from the consultant that assists, I'm sure there'll be some overlap. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
So maybe just to close the loop, and maybe I'll just kind of what I prepared as a member of the parking committee. I want to just clear up a couple things. So the article in Barrie today, I'm not the chair. We have our chair here, which was Ray DeHamel, and a member also beside him that was part of it. So just so the people at home and everybody understands, if this recommendation goes through for the parking committee in support tonight's to general and council and stuff, it is not approving or implementing this, of the year-round overnight parking ban on the streets. It's asking staff to include it into the report and report back to this committee in 27, late 26, early 27, and that it's then would be there'll be options like you can do it in this, you can do it in this area, that area, and these are the costs. So just so people know that if they, catch a soundbite, this is not to implement no overnight parking. This is to look at it as other municipalities have this and to see how it could be implemented, the cost, and everything else.
Perfect.
So,
I appreciate the clarification, and I say this with a smile on my face. Not just another member of the committee, but a very esteemed Ward 9 member beside Mr. DeHamel. So thank you for your work on this. This is an important but not a fun file. So it's thank you for your service. Okay, so I'm going to establish. Thank you, Ms. Cook, for the feedback. So we're not bundling these. We are just voting on 7.6.1 year-round overnight parking prohibition with a single-use overnight permit program. We will get to everything else momentarily. I also want to state something. I don't usually just kind of give this comment, blanket comment, but staff didn't write these. That's not to blame the committee. It's just if anybody notices it's a very different style of writing, etc. I know staff's writing style and Ms. Cook's, and she's very procedural about how they're structured. That is not a slight of the comment on the parking. It's a great content, but it's also not their job to write it to structure it for us. So I just want to state that it's not reflective of legislative services or even the ideas. It's just a kind of a unique how they're interlinked. So with that said, 7.6.1, anybody have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will take a vote. All those in favor of approving it. Okay, it's approved unanimously. We will see what it comes back. I am very cautious about this one. Early parking enforcement at occupancy prior to assumption of the subdivision. So everybody has it in front of them. I will add just some quick color. I'll kind of break convention here and speak a little bit first. This is a lot of technical language to say the rules kick in as soon as possible. You've dealt with this, Mayor Nettle, before in Ward 10 and Councillor Hamilton and a lot of South End wards. When you have a subdivision and people move in, like look at Mr. Flannery. Greer was this, and then the signs popped up, and now you're enforcing it. It feels like you're taking something away from them. It might have been a little bit. It might have been in very deep fine print, but if the enforcement starts versus just the fine print, it doesn't create a situation like we've had. And eventually, maybe some of you might have newer streets or lanes. In the case of your ward, Councillor Corser, you might get a lane, I think, an infill. I think this is really important. And we do enforce lanes, which is why I mentioned that. So I think this one speaks for itself. Any questions or comments? Similar to your full disclosure one, Councillor Nixon, about number of park visitor. It's very similar to that. So any questions? No? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
My understanding is that we're asking staff to look at these. Like, all of them.
Great question. So the wording here, so number 2 says that staff develop a process. So that is look into it. But the wording on number 1 is that park enforcement commences a building occupancy. So that's a great clarification question. I'll go to staff on that because the tone of the words in 1 and 2 are conflicting instead of looking into it versus starting enforcement.
Just to clarify, we already enforce parking at building occupancy. So it's just to kind of restate that. It's the second part that really needs to be looked into on how to provide the exemption for the trades. That's the process that we definitely need to look for as part of staff. And what I can do is, as we go through each of the motions, I would just, before it goes to general committee, I will just, if the intention is that staff report back on each of them, I'll just add a sentence to each of them that staff report back to community safety on the matter.
Yeah, I think for me, if I'm thinking about any ad hoc committee or task force or similar, like it's go out, get the information from the community, get the feedback from the community, get the ideas from the community, and then go to the team that's going to implement it, which is the public servants, to say, like, how does this all work? And then come back with the plan. I personally, and maybe it's because I took the red eye home last night, I don't want to debate this, then send it to staff, then debate what staff do. I'd rather send it to staff and debate what comes back because I think we're just duplicating this.
I see what you mean. You did bring it up earlier. I apologize. I think I meant to split the other one, not all of the remaining ones. So with that said, does any voting member of committee have any issue with just voting in a bundle 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, following the logic of let's send this to staff, have them do the work, and then we can debate the outcome of the work? Does anyone take any issue to that? No? Okay, perfect. So 7.2 to 7.6 are now bundled and on the floor. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. Okay, those are approved. For anybody watching or the media, obviously, as was stated earlier, this approval is to let them go get the work, not like council might do this. We don't have, I didn't hear any comments about we might do this. A lot of this stuff is very, a big change from the standard practice. So with that, this concludes the community safety meeting and the
items for discussion, which is 2.1 and 2.2. I'm looking for members of executive committee to, I'll tell you where I'm at on it, to approve this with the caveat that it's part of the requests for feedback that we just gave to staff on parking. It wouldn't make sense to get them to do separate reports and then come back with a counter recommendation to what is being considered overall. So if I could have a member of executive, perfect, Councillor Hamilton, and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. So I'm going to treat 2.1 and 2.2 at the same time. All those in favor? It's approved unanimously.
For Simcoe Community Media, I am Deepak Bidwai. This story was supported by the Local Journalism Initiative.